FTX and its founder Sam Bankman-Fried's fall from grace has many uncanny similarities with Adam Neumann.
WeWork has reported a first quarter net loss of $2.06 billion.
Are you actually turning a profit in the business?
We are definitely turning a profit. I'm bored of the businesses that don't turn a profit. I don't believe in them.
Hey guys, this is Prashant from TechNudo and we have a very interesting story. This story is about Adam Neumann, the famous, or should I say, the infamous former CEO of co-working startup WeWork is back with another startup. While Neumann launching a new startup is not at all a big news, as much as the fact that his new startup has already received a massive funding, and that too in these crisis days. Well, America's a well-known VC firm A16Z, or Andreessen Horowitz, has pumped $350 million in Neumann's new residential rental startup Flow. A16Z has bagged Neumann's new startup at a valuation of whopping $1 billion, making it a unicorn even before the startup is yet to launch its first product into the market.
Community, being surrounded by a group of like-minded individuals, being part of something bigger than yourself inspires people to work harder, spend more time at work, and just have fun doing it.
Well, for any startup to become a unicorn during a pre-seed funding stage is the rarest of the rare thing in a global startup industry. But what's really astonishing and shocking is that the VC industry continues to put faith on Neumann despite the WeWork fiasco. Many industry experts and business analysts widely blamed Neumann's unethical business practices and his toxic habits for the near downfall of WeWork in 2019. Just to give an idea about how dramatic was the downfall of WeWork, at its peak, WeWork boosted a market valuation of nearly $47 billion. But this staggering valuation crashed to only $8 billion just weeks before this startup was supposed to go for an IPO. The steep fall in WeWork's valuation and the company's abrupt decision to stall its much-hyped IPO created shock waves across the American media. Now that eventually led to Neumann's resignation from WeWork. He was even forced to sell his entire stake in the company to the largest investor, SoftBank.
How fast are you growing?
Very.
Net losses, they were in the billions of dollars.
What kind of numbers are we talking about?
We're talking about probably one of the fastest physical expansions that has been seen for the past 10 years.
WeWork has reported a first quarter net loss of $2.06 billion.
Are you actually turning a profit in the
We are
business?
definitely turning a profit. I'm bored of the businesses that don't turn a profit. I don't believe in them. I need a cash flow positive business.
The company was one of the hottest startups in history. Then it plunged from nearly $50 billion in value to basically worthless in just 6 weeks.
That is WeWork.
To make long story short, Neumann was widely depicted as the villain who single-handedly caused the downfall of one of America's high-profile startups. But today, this so-called villain has once again become the poster boy of the startup industry. And this brings us to the fundamental question. Why does the American VC industry continue to have the faith in a man whose past has been so questionable? Well, by all means, Neumann's new startup Flow should be struggling to raise funds, let alone becoming a unicorn even before launching. But before we shed light on Flow and its business model, let us first talk about the man himself. Who is Adam Neumann? How he started WeWork, and what were his controversial practices that eventually led to the collapse of WeWork? Well, Adam Neumann is an Israeli-American businessman who had this intense desire to leave an undeniable mark in the world of entrepreneurship. Thanks to his desire, he started dabbling into the startup world as soon as he graduated from the college. In 2005, he started his first startup, a children clothing company called Crawlers. Crawlers achieved moderate success and the company's name was changed into Egg Baby in 2006. But Neumann's real turning point came in 2008 when he met a startup entrepreneur called Mr. McKelvey through a mutual friend. Both brainstormed over an idea of launching a shared office space for freelancers and small businesses. They converted this idea into a reality and started a company called Green Desk, which was actually a precursor to WeWork. When Green Desk started performing well, both Neumann and his friend wanted to take the idea to the next level, and this is how WeWork was finally conceived in 2010. WeWork was founded with an aim to revolutionize the corporate workplace. Neumann and his wife, which happened to be his partner, argued that the traditional workplaces were completely antisocial and did not fulfill the emotional needs of the millennial workers. They believed that there is no reason that workplace should not be a fun place where co-workers could socialize and interact. Neumann and his wife made sure that WeWork's interiors and its work culture completely reflected this core philosophy. And millennial workers responded pretty positively to WeWork's philosophy of fusing the elements of fun and cool quotient into the workspace. Scores of freelancers, dozens of startups, and even mid-sized companies started to flock to WeWork's offices. Encouraged by WeWork's initial success, Adam Neumann expanded WeWork's presence across the US. And as WeWork steadily grew, the VC industry eventually took note of this fast-emerging startup. Although WeWork had already started raising external capital through small funding rounds, its big funding moment came in 2014 when it raised substantial amount of funding from big financial institutions like Goldman Sachs, T. Rowe Price, and JP Morgan Chase. Well, WeWork's another big funding moment came in 2017 when Mayatoshi's son's SoftBank pumped nearly $3 billion of private equity investment, making SoftBank the largest investor in the company. SoftBank's investment also propelled Neumann's startup into the big league, making WeWork the 7th most valued startup by the end of 2017. Splashed with big VC funds, WeWork started growing aggressively across key international markets. The company had opened shared office locations in several countries in Europe, Asia, and South America. WeWork was no longer a small startup, but a company that had global presence and even became a sort of global brand. As WeWork's profile increased, so did the status of Adam Neumann. This man was now everywhere, from giving interviews to leading American news channels to making it to the cover page of popular business magazine Forbes. Well, Neumann was now literally on the moon, becoming a part of the great quintessential American story that if you go after your dreams, then anything is possible. It now looked that WeWork is now on its way to become a multi-billion-dollar company. But then came the summer of 2019. When WeWork finally filed for an IPO following tremendous pressure from SoftBank and other investors. WeWork's IPO was supposed to be one of the most awaited IPOs of 2019. But unfortunately for Neumann, things did not go according to the plan. Just weeks before WeWork's ambitious IPO, market regulators and institutional investors started asking several tough questions. And Neumann did not have convincing answers to any of those questions. The investors were surely concerned about WeWork's ballooning losses. However, they were more concerned about WeWork's business model, which most investors perceived to be weak and not self-sustainable. Investors argued that WeWork's business model of taking offices on a long-term lease and renting it back to freelancers and companies on short-term lease was never going to generate much profit in the longer run. Besides, unlike Neumann, investors never saw WeWork as a modern-day tech startup, but as a traditional real estate company. A real estate company whose ability to cope with economical recession was highly questioned. WeWork's failure to generate a profit, even for a single quarter in all its past history, only made investors more jittery about the long-term future of Neumann's company. But there was a much bigger problem at hand. And this problem was none other than Adam Neumann himself. As WeWork started gearing up for its IPO, the American media started digging deeper into Neumann's business practices and his personal work culture. And this brought forth many disturbing facts and dark secrets about WeWork's founder. From Neumann's controversial practice of promoting wild parties at WeWork's offices to his unethical business practices that put his own integrity to question. Talking particularly about wild parties, several media reports said that parties at WeWork office premises heavily used drugs and alcohol. Critics argued that Neumann's philosophy of integrating fun culture into workplace went a little too far. According to an American author who has written a book on WeWork's debacle, Neumann spent millions on his weed addiction, and much of that weed addiction spilled over to WeWork's office premises. As drugs and booze became rampant in the WeWork offices, so did the practice of sexual harassment. Many of the former female WeWork employees revealed to the media that they were repeatedly sexually harassed by senior employees, with few of them even pointing fingers at Adam Neumann himself. To make matters worse, Neumann's alleged accounting fraud also hogged a lot of limelight in the American press. Many media reports claim that he used WeWork's funds for his own personal expenses, including for buying expensive real estate properties across US. Even Neumann's decision to change his company's name from WeWork to We in 2018 equally shocked the investors. What really shocked the investors is that Neumann charged a hefty fee of $6 million from his own company, claiming that he owned the patent for the name We. Investors claim that this incident proved beyond doubt that Neumann treated WeWork as his personal kingdom and openly demonstrated his poor business ethics. To make long story short, WeWork and Neumann were experiencing their worst meltdown just weeks before the IPO. And Wall Street investors strongly believed that the only way to fix this problem is to show Neumann an exit door. SoftBank, the largest investor of WeWork, did exactly that. SoftBank bought almost the entire stake that Neumann owned in WeWork, and in return, SoftBank paid him an impressive package of $1.7 billion. In other words, Neumann was paid whopping $1.7 billion for running a promising company. Well, after Neumann's unceremonious exit, WeWork temporarily halted its much-anticipated IPO. However, almost a year after, WeWork did went to list itself on the New York Stock Exchange. But as things stand today, WeWork is operating as a small and humble public limited company and not as a multi-billion-dollar company that Neumann and his investors once envisioned. And this brings us to the latest chapter that is unfolding in Neumann's present life. And this new chapter is all about his new startup Flow. And interestingly, just like WeWork, Neumann's new startup also deals with real estate, though it deals with residential real estate. But the fact is, no one actually knows what Neumann's new startup is all about. Flow is going to launch its first product somewhere in 2023. However, there are many who claim that Flow is not an original idea and is actually a copycat of another startup. This startup is called Alfred. Alfred is run by two young female entrepreneurs, Marcella Sapon and Jessica Beck. Well, started in 2014, Alfred provided app-based concierge-type services to busy millennials living in urban areas. It provided services like grocery pickup, dry cleaning laundry, pet care, booking restaurant reservations, and so on. Later on, Alfred partnered with landlords in the upscale area and provided app-based concierge services in such areas and earned higher profit margin. But Alfred soon realized that if it wants to earn more profit, then it has to dabble beyond concierge-type services. Therefore, it soon ventured into property management services and started managing properties through its customized software. As the years went by, Alfred grew and became a fast-growing company. It even acquired a highly successful property management firm, RKW Residential, which at that time was already managing 30,000 homes. By 2021, Alfred was already a big company. By this time, nearly 3 million US residents were already using its technology and services, making it the most successful company in the property management niche. And guess what? Who was the leading investor and occupied two board positions in this highly successful company? Well, none other than Adam Neumann. Turns out that Neumann had quietly bought a substantial stake in Alfred when he was still the CEO of WeWork. It is said that Neumann loved Alfred's business model and even wanted to completely acquire the company. But he could not do so because of technical reasons. So what did he do? Well, he went to acquire Alfred's direct competitor called Carson in 2021. Carson offered the same services that Alfred did, from offering concierge-type services to managing properties. Today, it is said that Carson's founders and top management team are working closely in shaping Flow's debut product that is supposed to launch next year. Although we will have to wait for several more months to know what is Flow product all about, many are already convinced that its product won't be any different than Alfred's. Some even claim that Flow will be a straightaway copycat of Alfred. Now, considering that Neumann once owned a substantial stake in Alfred, this raised serious ethical questions on part of Neumann. But judging by Neumann's antics during his stint at WeWork, it is pretty clear that this man cares little about ethics. But it is not only Neumann whose ethics are under question. The VC firm A16Z that gave away a massive check of $350 million to Neumann startup has also come under scandal. And what is even more shocking is that it is A16Z's the biggest funding in any startup till date. Considering Neumann's scandalous past, Andreessen Horowitz's big bet on Neumann's new startup clearly defies logic. Only time will say whether this massive bet pays off or not. But it seems that the American and Western media are not interested in giving any benefit of doubt to Neumann and have heavily criticized A16Z's decision to fund this new startup. As reported by the BBC, Alison Byers, founder and CEO of Scroobius, said, and I quote, "There is a reason why this is making such waves because of the size of the check, because of the unprecedented funding of somebody who has been popularized as an immoral business person. It creates a more emotional reaction." Well, Flo's unprecedented funding also brings forth the age-old accusation that VC fundings are highly flawed and is often riddled with bias. One of America's leading news portal, NPR, published an article on Flo's funding with a stinging headline that read, $350 million for WeWork founder shows how broken and biased venture capital is. Well, by the way, Flo's unprecedented funding of $350 million comes at a time when the global media has been flooded by the news of FTX's dramatic collapse. FTX and its founder Sam Bankman-Fried's fall from grace has many uncanny similarities with Adam Neumann. Both Bankman-Fried and Neumann were very young and wanted to become billionaires really fast. Their startups were pampered with huge VC fundings, they resorted to counting frauds and allegedly gobbled millions of dollars, and both promoted toxic work culture at their workplaces. But this seriously raises many uncomfortable questions. Questions like why CEOs of high-profile startups act like super CEOs and why their unethical practices, including their accounting frauds, go unaccountable. Well, above all, this equally raises serious moral questions about the American VC industry. American VC industry's lack of due diligence and even their apparent bias while conducting funding rounds does not really entail good news for the overall health of the American startup culture. To sum it up, the American startup industry, including the high-profile VCs, need to have some serious soul-searching here. Well, that was it for the story. If you like this one, smash the like button and subscribe to our channel. This is Prashant. See you in the next one.